Majority of people never realize this. Every dollar you earn, every dollar you keep, and every dollar you grow depends on your ability to persuade. Not manipulate, not trick. Persuade. And if that statement surprises you, it's because you've been thinking about wealth all wrong. You think wealth is about working harder, about finding the right investment, about cutting coupons and skipping coffee. But I've spent over 2 decades helping people build real wealth, and I'll tell you what I've seen again and again. The people who get ahead financially aren't always the smartest. They're not always the hardest workers. They're the ones who've mastered the art of persuasion in every area of their financial life. They persuade employers to pay them more. They persuade themselves to delay gratification. They persuade others to invest in their ideas. They persuade creditors to work with them. They persuade their own doubts to be quiet. They persuade their partners to align on money goals. Every single financial breakthrough they experience starts with the ability to shift someone's thinking, including their own. Think about your current financial situation. How much of it comes down to conversations you had or didn't have? The raise you didn't ask for? The business idea you never pitched? The budget conversation with your spouse you kept avoiding? The negotiation you walked away from because you didn't believe you could win? That's not a money problem. That's a persuasion problem. Most people go through life letting other people set their financial terms. They accept the first salary offer. They pay the asking price. They believe the voice in their head that says they're not worth more. They let fear make their financial decisions. And then they wonder why their bank account never grows. This isn't about becoming a slick talker. This isn't about manipulation or lying. This is about learning to communicate value, to build genuine influence, to create win-win situations, and most importantly, to persuade yourself to take the actions wealthy people take even when it's uncomfortable. Over the next 2 hours, you're going to learn how persuasion shows up in every corner of wealth building, how to negotiate your income higher, how to convince yourself to invest when fear is screaming, how to get others to support your financial goals, how to influence decision makers, how to sell your skills, your ideas, your vision, not through tricks, but through understanding how people think, what they value, and how decisions are really made. This isn't theory. These are the exact principles I've seen transform people's financial lives. The person making $40,000 who learns to negotiate and jumps to $60,000 in 2 years. The entrepreneur who couldn't get funding until they learned to tell their story differently. The couple drowning in debt who finally aligned because someone learned to communicate without blame. Your financial future is waiting on the other side of better conversations, better with yourself, better with employers, better with partners, better with opportunities. The question is simple. Are you ready to stop accepting what's offered and start creating what you deserve? Let's begin. Chapter 1. Persuade yourself. First, before convincing anyone else. Everything starts here. Not with convincing your boss, not with pitching investors, not with negotiating prices. It starts with the hardest person you'll ever have to persuade, yourself. You want to know why most people stay broke? It's not because they don't know what to do. They know they should ask for raises. They know they should start businesses. They know they should invest. They know they should save more. The information is everywhere, but they can't convince themselves to act on it. That's the brutal truth. Your bank account isn't reflecting your knowledge, it's reflecting your self-persuasion ability. How good are you at talking yourself into uncomfortable action? How strong is your ability to override fear with logic? How skilled are you at making your future goals feel more real than your present comfort? Because every financial breakthrough requires you to do something that doesn't feel natural. Asking for more money feels arrogant. Starting a business feels risky. Investing feels uncertain. Saving aggressively feels like deprivation. Your brain offers you 1,000 reasons not to do these things. And if you can't persuade yourself past those reasons, you'll never persuade anyone else to give you anything. I've watched this play out hundreds of times. Someone comes to me with a clear goal. They want to double their income. They want to build a business. They want to retire early. And when we map out what it takes, they agree with everything. They see the path. They understand the steps. But 6 months later, nothing's happened. Not because the plan was wrong, because they couldn't convince themselves to execute it. Think about the last time you knew what you should do financially but didn't do it. What story did you tell yourself? Maybe you said you weren't ready. Maybe you said the timing was off. Maybe you said you'd do it next month. Maybe you said it was too risky. Those weren't facts. Those were the arguments you used to persuade yourself into inaction. And you won. You convinced yourself to stay comfortable. Here's what wealthy people understand. Self-persuasion is a skill you build through practice. They've learned to recognize when fear is talking. They've learned to separate real risks from imagined ones. They've learned to make decisions based on where they want to go, not where they currently are. That shift doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intentional mental training. You need to become your own best advocate. When your brain says this is too hard, you need to persuade it that hard is temporary but results last. When your fear says you'll probably fail, you need to persuade yourself that failure is part of the path, not the end of it. When your comfort says, just wait a little longer, you need to persuade yourself that waiting has a cost you can't afford. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about building a stronger argument for growth than you currently have for staying the same. Because right now, your argument for staying comfortable is winning. That's why you're still where you are. Let me show you how this works practically. Let's say you want to ask for a raise. The information is simple. Prepare your case, schedule the meeting, make your request. But your brain immediately floods you with objections. They'll say no. They'll think I'm ungrateful. I'm not worth more. The timing is bad. They'll replace me. Every one of those thoughts is your brain trying to persuade you not to act. So you have to counter-persuade. You have to build a stronger case. If I don't ask, I guarantee I don't get it. If they say no, I'm exactly where I am now. I've delivered strong results, which means I have value. The worst case is hearing no. The best case changes my financial trajectory. People who don't ask don't get paid what they're worth. I'd rather face temporary discomfort than permanent underpayment. See the difference? One narrative keeps you stuck. The other pushes you forward. Your job is to get so good at the second one that it becomes automatic. The same principle applies to everything. Investing? Your brain says you could lose it all. You persuade yourself, not investing guarantees I lose to inflation. Diversified investing over time has proven results. Keeping money in savings is the real risk. Starting a business? Fear says, most businesses fail. You counter, most people never try. Those who do learn either way. Employment has risk too. I'm one decision away from being cut. I'd rather bet on myself. You're building mental muscle here, the ability to challenge your own limiting beliefs, the skill of making the case for your growth before anyone else has to. Because if you can't convince yourself, you'll never sound convincing to others. This also means getting honest about your current self-talk. Most people run negative propaganda campaigns against themselves all day long. They tell themselves they're not good enough, not smart enough, not experienced enough, not ready enough, and then they wonder why they don't take action. You've been persuading yourself into smallness. You've been winning arguments for limitation. That has to stop today. Starting now, you pay attention to every limiting story you tell yourself. And instead of accepting it, you challenge it. Instead of agreeing with fear, you interrogate it. Is this actually true, or is this just comfortable? Is this a real obstacle, or am I making excuses? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Here's a practical exercise. Write down the one financial move you've been avoiding, the thing you know you should do but haven't. Now, write down every reason you haven't done it, every excuse, every fear, every justification. Look at that list. Those are the arguments you've been using to persuade yourself into inaction. Now, write a counter-argument to each one. Build the case for action. Make it stronger than your case for comfort. Because the person you need to convince is staring back at you in the mirror. And until you win that argument, nothing else happens. Self-persuasion is the foundation of financial success. Before you negotiate a raise, you have to persuade yourself you're worth it. Before you start a business, you have to persuade yourself it's possible. Before you invest, you have to persuade yourself the risk is acceptable. Before you sell anything, you have to persuade yourself you have value to offer. The conversation with yourself always comes first. And if you lose that conversation, you lose everything that follows. So start treating your own mind like the most important negotiation you'll ever have. Because it is. Your future wealth depends on your ability to talk yourself into uncomfortable growth, to convince yourself that you're capable before anyone else agrees, to build belief through logic, evidence, and commitment rather than waiting for feelings to magically align. You are the first person you must persuade. Get good at that, and everything else becomes possible. Stay bad at it, and no amount of external opportunity will matter because you'll talk yourself out of every single one. The power is in your hands. The question is whether you'll use it to argue for your limitations or your possibilities. Choose wisely. Your bank account is listening. Chapter 2. Master the Art of Asking Without Apology. Let me tell you about the most expensive word in the English language. Sorry. And I'm not talking about when you actually need to apologize for doing something wrong. I'm talking about the apologetic energy most people bring to asking for what they want financially. Sorry to bother you, but I'm sorry to ask, but sorry if this is too much, but every time you apologize for asking, you cut your own value in half before the conversation even starts. You're literally persuading the other person that what you're about to request is unreasonable. You're doing their objection work for them. Here's what I've learned watching thousands of financial negotiations. People who get paid more, who close more deals, who build more wealth, they ask without apology. Not rudely, not arrogantly. But they don't apologize for advocating for themselves. They understand something fundamental. Asking is not a burden. It's a business conversation. Your boss isn't doing you a favor by paying you. You're exchanging value for compensation. That investor isn't being generous by funding your idea. They're looking for returns. That client isn't helping you out by hiring you. They need a problem solved. These are transactions, not charity. And in transactions, asking for what you want is expected. It's respected. It's how business works. But most people don't see it that way. They see asking as begging. They see negotiating as being difficult. They see advocating for themselves as greedy or pushy. So they soften their requests, they qualify everything, they make themselves small, and then they get small results. Think about the last time you asked for something financially significant, a raise, a better rate, a higher fee, a sale. How did you feel walking into that conversation? Did you feel powerful and clear? Or did you feel like you were imposing? Did you state your case with confidence? Or did you hedge and minimize and apologize? The way you ask determines what you get. If you ask like you're bothering someone, they'll agree you're bothering them and say no. If you ask like you're not sure you deserve it, they'll agree you probably don't and decline. If you ask like you're doing something wrong, they'll treat you like you are. Your energy sets the frame. Your confidence, or lack of it, tells people how to respond. Asking without apology doesn't mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean being entitled. It doesn't mean ignoring the other person's position. It means approaching the conversation as a peer, as someone with value to offer, as someone whose request is legitimate and reasonable. Let me show you the difference. Apologetic asking. I'm sorry to bring this up, and I know it might not be possible, but I was wondering if maybe there's any chance I could possibly get a raise. I mean, if it's too much to ask, that's totally fine. I just thought I'd mention it. Asking without apology. I'd like to discuss my compensation. Over the past year, I've delivered X, Y, and Z results. Based on market rates for this role and my performance, I'm requesting a salary adjustment to BAT. What questions do you have about this request? See how different those feel? The first one is handing the other person permission to say no. The second one is opening a business discussion. The first one makes you sound unsure. The second one makes you sound prepared. The first one suggests you don't believe in your own value. The second one demonstrates you do. This is persuasion in action. You're not manipulating. You're framing. You're setting the tone for how this conversation will go. And when you ask without apology, you force the other person to take you seriously. They have to engage with your actual request rather than dismissing it based on your lack of confidence. Here's what happens in the brain when someone asks apologetically. The listener immediately relaxes. They think, "Oh, this person doesn't really believe they should get this. I can say no easily." Your apology gave them an out. Your uncertainty made their decision simple. But when someone asks with clear confidence, the listener has to engage differently. They think, "This person believes they deserve this. They've thought this through. I need to actually consider it." Your confidence demanded a real response. Your clarity made dismissal harder. This applies to everything. Selling your services? Don't apologize for your prices. State them clearly and let the client decide if the value matches. Pitching an idea? Don't soften your vision with maybes and possiblies. Present it with conviction and let them respond. Negotiating a purchase? Don't act grateful for whatever they offer. Know your target and negotiate toward it without guilt. The biggest mistake people make is confusing confidence with aggression. They think if they're not apologetic, they're being rude. But that's not how it works. You can be respectful and firm at the same time. You can be kind and clear. You can be collaborative and confident. These aren't opposites. Here's the formula. State what you want. Explain why it's reasonable. Listen to their response. Respond to their actual objections. Find middle ground if needed, but never apologize for starting the conversation. You also need to get comfortable with silence after you ask. This is where most people break. They ask for something, and then they immediately start filling the silence with backtracking. "But I mean, if that doesn't work, or we could do less, I'm flexible on this." Stop. You asked. Now be quiet. Let them process. Let them respond. Your silence shows confidence. Your rambling shows doubt. The person who speaks first after the ask usually loses. If you ask for a raise and immediately start offering to accept less, you just negotiated against yourself. If you quote a price and then immediately offer a discount, you told them your price was inflated. If you make an offer and then start explaining why they should probably reject it, you destroyed your own position. Ask, then wait. Let the other person be the first to respond to what you actually requested. Most of the time, their response won't be as bad as the scenario you're imagining. And even if they say no, you can work with that. But if you undercut yourself before they even answer, you never had a chance. Another key: remove "just" from your vocabulary in these conversations. "I'm just asking. It's just a quick question. I just wanted to check." That word minimizes everything you say. It makes you sound small. It suggests what you're about to say doesn't really matter. Instead, "I'm asking. I have a question. I wanted to discuss." Direct, clear, no apology, no minimizing. You're not just doing anything. You're doing something that matters to your financial future. You also have to prepare yourself mentally before these conversations. You can't walk into a negotiation feeling apologetic and suddenly become confident mid-conversation. You have to decide before you walk in. I have the right to ask for this. This is a reasonable request. I deserve to advocate for myself. This is how business works. That mental prep changes everything. It changes your posture. It changes your tone. It changes your word choice. And all of those changes communicate to the other person that you're serious and they should take you seriously. Here's the reality. People respect people who respect themselves. If you don't value your own ask, no one else will. If you don't believe you deserve what you're requesting, you won't persuade anyone else to believe it. Your conviction, or lack of it, is contagious. People catch your energy and mirror it back to you. So if you want to build wealth, you have to get comfortable asking for what you want without apology. Asking for the raise, asking for the sale, asking for the investment, asking for the opportunity, asking for the rate you deserve, not hoping someone offers it, not waiting to be discovered, asking directly, clearly, confidently. This is how money moves. Through people who aren't afraid to make their value known, through people who understand that business is about exchange, not charity, through people who can look someone in the eye and state what they want without shrinking. Most people will never build wealth because they can't do this. They'd rather stay underpaid than have an uncomfortable conversation. They'd rather accept less than ask for more. They'd rather keep their value hidden than risk someone saying no. But you don't have to be most people. You can decide today that apologizing for asking is over, that you're going to approach these conversations as a peer, that you're going to state your case with clarity and let the other person respond to what you actually want, not to a watered-down version you think they'll accept. The next financial conversation you have, and you know which one I'm talking about, the one you've been avoiding, you're going to walk in without apology. You're going to state what you want clearly. You're going to support it with reasoning, and you're going to wait for a real response without undercutting yourself. That one shift will change what you earn. Because asking without apology isn't just about that one conversation. It's about respecting yourself enough to believe you deserve to ask in the first place. And when you start believing that, other people will too. Chapter 3. Learn to negotiate everything like your future depends on it. Because it does. Your future financial position is literally the sum of every negotiation you've had or avoided, every salary you accepted without negotiating, every price you paid without asking for better, every opportunity you walked away from because you didn't know how to structure a deal, every partnership where you took less than you should have because you didn't want to seem difficult. All of it adds up, or in most cases, it adds down, straight to the bottom of your bank account. Most people think negotiation is something you do occasionally, when you're buying a car, when you're accepting a job, when you're trying to get a deal on something big. But wealthy people think differently. They know negotiation isn't an occasional skill. It's a daily practice, because almost everything in life is negotiable if you know how to frame the conversation. Think about your current financial situation. How much money have you left on the table because you didn't negotiate? That job offer you accepted immediately without asking for more. That vendor price you paid without question. That client contract where you agreed to their terms without countering. That partnership where the split didn't favor you, but you didn't want to rock the boat. That rent increase you absorbed without negotiating. That service you overpaid for because you didn't know you could ask for better. If you added up all those instances, all those small surrenders, all those times you accepted the first offer, what number would you get? 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, more? That's real money. Money that could be in your account right now, money that could be compounding, money that could have changed your trajectory. But it's not there. Because you didn't negotiate. Here's the fundamental truth about negotiation. People respect people who negotiate. They expect it, they're prepared for it. In fact, when you don't negotiate, many people assume either you don't know your value or you're not serious about your financial life. Either way, they've learned something about you. And it's not good. Employers build cushion into offers expecting negotiation. They make the first offer knowing most people will counter. If you don't, you signal that you're either uninformed or easily satisfied with less. Vendors price services knowing some clients will negotiate. If you don't, you're subsidizing their profit margins unnecessarily. Clients propose terms that favor them knowing you might push back. If you don't, you're doing unprofitable work. The question isn't whether you should negotiate. The question is why you're not. And I know the answer. It's the same reason I hear from everyone. You don't want to seem greedy. You don't want to be difficult. You don't want to lose the opportunity. You don't want to offend anyone. You're grateful for what's being offered. You're afraid they'll rescind the offer. You don't want to negotiate yourself out of something good. All of that is fear talking, and fear is keeping you poor. Let me tell you what actually happens when you negotiate. Most of the time, you get something better than what was initially offered. Sometimes you get exactly what you asked for. Sometimes you get part of it. Rarely do you get nothing, and almost never does the offer disappear because you tried to negotiate. But even when negotiation doesn't change the outcome, something else happens. You learned information. You practiced the skill. You proved to yourself that asking doesn't kill you. You built the muscle for the next time. And next time, you'll be better at it. Negotiation is a skill like any other. The more you do it, the better you get. But most people practice it so rarely that they never develop competence. They negotiate maybe once a year, maybe less. So every time feels terrifying and unfamiliar. Of course they don't do it well. Of course they leave money on the table. Wealthy people negotiate constantly, not because they're greedy, because they understand that business is negotiation. Life is negotiation. Every transaction has terms, and the person who's comfortable discussing terms is the person who gets better terms. So let's talk about how to actually negotiate. Because this isn't about being aggressive or manipulative. It's about having honest business conversations where both parties work toward mutual benefit. First, you need to know what you want. Sounds obvious, but most people walk into negotiations with vague ideas. I'd like more money. That's not specific enough. You need a number, a range, a clear target. You need to know your minimum acceptable outcome and your desired outcome. If you don't know what you're aiming for, you can't negotiate toward it. Second, you need to know the market. What do others in your position get? What's the standard rate? What's the competitive price? You can't negotiate well without information. If you're asking for a salary increase, know what that role pays elsewhere. If you're pricing your services, know what competitors charge. If you're buying, know what others have paid. Information is leverage. Third, understand the other person's position. What do they want? What are their constraints? What matters to them? Negotiation isn't about forcing your will. It's about finding alignment. If you understand what they value, you can structure offers that give them what they need while getting what you want. Fourth, lead with value. Don't just ask for more. Show why more is justified. What results have you delivered? What value do you bring? What problem do you solve? What would they lose if you walked away? The stronger your value proposition, the easier the negotiation. Fifth, be willing to walk away. This is the hardest part for most people. But if you're not willing to decline a bad deal, you have no negotiating power. The other person knows they can lowball you because you'll accept it anyway. You have to be comfortable with no being an option, not as a threat, as a reality, because some deals aren't worth taking. Sixth, propose multiple options. Don't just say, I want X. Offer different structures. I'm looking for Y, but I'm also open to Z if that works better for you. Give them ways to say yes. Give them paths that work for both of you. The more options you present, the more likely one fits. Seventh, silence is your friend. After you make a proposal, stop talking. Let them think. Let them respond. Most people get uncomfortable with silence and start negotiating against themselves. Well, actually, I could probably do less. Stop. You made an offer. Let them respond to it. Eighth, expect the first answer to be no. That's part of negotiation. When someone says no, that's not the end. That's the beginning. I understand. Can you help me understand what would make this work? What would you be comfortable with? If not X, what about Y? No just means no to that specific proposal. It doesn't mean no to everything. Ninth, everything is connected. If they can't move on price, can they move on terms, timeline, scope, payment structure, benefits, equity, revenue share? There are dozens of variables in most negotiations. If one is stuck, shift to another. 10th, get it in writing. Once you reach agreement, document it. Too many people negotiate successfully and then get screwed because nothing was formalized. Email confirmations, contracts, letters of agreement, whatever makes sense for the situation. But get the terms documented before you start working. Now let's talk about specific scenarios because this is where theory meets reality. Salary negotiation. You get an offer. Don't accept immediately. Thank you for the offer. I'm excited about this opportunity. I need a day to review the details and I'll get back to you. Then you counter. I appreciate the offer of X. Based on my experience and market rates for this position, I was expecting something closer to Y. Is there flexibility here? Then be quiet. Let them respond. If they won't budge on salary, negotiate signing bonus, stock options, earlier review cycle, extra vacation, remote work flexibility, professional development budget. There are many ways to increase total compensation. Vendor pricing. Never accept the first price quote. I appreciate the quote. I'm comparing a few options. What's your best price? Or, I'm working with a budget of X dollars. Can you meet that? Or, what would the price be if I signed today, paid up front, committed to longer term? You'd be amazed how often prices drop when you simply ask. Client rates. When a client asks your price, don't lowball yourself. State your standard rate. My rate for this type of project is X. If they push back, don't immediately drop your price. Understand their concern. What budget were you working with? Then you can adjust scope, not value. At that budget, here's what I could deliver. Never do full work for partial pay. Reduce what you deliver, not what you charge for what you deliver. Purchases. For any significant purchase, negotiate. What's your best price? Is there any flexibility here? What would it take to get to X? Car dealers expect it, contractors expect it. Even retail stores often have flexibility they don't advertise. The worst they can say is no, and you're no worse off than you were. Partnerships. When entering business partnerships, negotiate everything up front: equity split, decision-making authority, capital contributions, profit distribution, exit terms, time commitments, everything. It's much easier to negotiate when everyone's excited than after problems arise, and everything is easier in writing before money or work changes hands. Here's what I want you to understand. Negotiation isn't a conflict. It's a conversation. You're not fighting with the other person. You're working with them to find terms that work for both of you. Most people avoid negotiation because they frame it as confrontation, but it's not. It's collaboration. Think about it differently. You're helping the other person understand your position so they can make a better decision. You're giving them information they need. You're opening a dialogue. That's not aggressive. That's professional. And yes, sometimes negotiation doesn't work. Sometimes the other party won't budge. Sometimes the deal falls apart. That's okay. Not every negotiation ends in agreement. But you learned, you practiced, you advocated for yourself, and the next time you'll be even better. The cost of not negotiating is always higher than the discomfort of trying. Every time you skip negotiation, you accept less than you could have gotten. You reinforce the habit of settling. You teach people you're easy to lowball, and you move further away from the wealth you're trying to build. Starting today, negotiate everything, not out of greed, out of respect for your financial future. Small negotiations add up to big differences. A $5,000 salary increase negotiated once is over $100,000 over 20 years. A 10% discount on major purchases saves thousands annually. Better contract terms mean more profit on every project. This is how wealth builds, through hundreds of small negotiations that compound over time, through the discipline of asking for better terms, through the confidence of knowing your value and being willing to advocate for it. You don't have to be great at it immediately. You just have to start doing it. Every negotiation teaches you something. Every attempt builds confidence. Every time you try, you get a little better. Your future depends on this skill. Not just financially, but in every area of life. Negotiation is how you get what you want in a world where everyone is looking out for their own interests. It's how you advocate for yourself in situations where no one else will. So stop accepting first offers. Stop overpaying out of discomfort. Stop leaving money on the table because you don't want to seem difficult. Start seeing every transaction as an opportunity to practice negotiation. Start asking better questions. Start proposing better terms. Start believing you deserve to advocate for yourself, because you do. And your bank account will prove it. Chapter 4. Persuade people to invest in your ideas and vision. Here's a hard truth. Your ideas are worthless until someone believes in them enough to invest resources. Money, time, energy, attention, partnership. Doesn't matter how brilliant your vision is if it stays locked in your head. Wealth is built when you can get others to buy into what you see. This is where most people with great ideas stay broke. They have the vision, they have the plan. They might even have the skills. But they can't persuade anyone else to take a chance on them, so the idea dies. And they stay stuck working for someone else's vision instead of building their own. The ability to attract investment, whether that's venture capital, angel investors, bank loans, partnership agreements, or even just getting people to pay for your product before it exists, that ability separates entrepreneurs from employees, people who build wealth from people who work for it. And I'm not just talking about starting businesses. This applies to everything. Convincing your company to invest in your project idea, getting clients to commit to long-term contracts, persuading partners to join your venture, even getting family to support your transition to a new career. All of it requires the same skill, making other people see what you see and believe it's worth supporting. Most people fail at this because they focus on the wrong thing. They focus on the idea itself. They talk about features, details, specifications. They get lost in the weeds explaining every aspect of their plan. And they wonder why eyes glaze over and people say, "That's nice, but I'll pass." Here's what they're missing. People don't invest in ideas. They invest in people who have ideas. They invest in belief. They invest in conviction. They invest in someone who makes them feel certain about an uncertain future. Think about the last time you tried to get someone to support something you wanted to do. Maybe you pitched a business idea. Maybe you asked for funding. Maybe you tried to convince someone to come on board. How did it go? Did they immediately say yes? Or did they hesitate, ask a bunch of questions, and ultimately decline or drag their feet? If it didn't go well, it probably wasn't your idea. It was how you presented yourself. Did you sound certain, or did you sound hopeful? Did you project confidence, or did you seem like you were seeking validation? Did you speak like someone who was going to make this happen regardless, or did you sound like someone who needed permission? Investors, and I'm using that term broadly to mean anyone who might support you, are reading you more than they're reading your plan. They're asking themselves, does this person have what it takes? Will they persist when things get hard? Do they truly believe in this? Am I going to regret giving them money? Your job in that conversation is to make them certain about you. Because if they're certain about you, they'll tolerate uncertainty about the idea. But if they're uncertain about you, it doesn't matter how good the idea is. So let's talk about how to actually persuade people to invest in your vision. First, you need clarity. You cannot persuade someone to invest in a vision you can't articulate clearly. Too many people walk into these conversations with vague concepts. I want to start a business helping people. Stop. What specifically? Who exactly? Solving what precise problem? How? When? Where's the proof this is needed? Vague ideas. Sound unrealistic. Specific ideas sound executable. If you can't explain your vision in 2 minutes in a way that makes someone say, "Oh, I get it. You don't have a vision. You have a notion," go back and get clearer. Second, lead with the problem, not the solution. Don't start with, "I have this great idea for an app." Start with, "Do you know how frustrating it is when..." Make them feel the problem. Make them nod and say, "Yes, I hate that too." Once they feel the problem, they're primed to hear your solution. But if you lead with the solution, they're thinking, "Do I even care about this?" Third, show proof of concept. The biggest mistake people make is asking for investment before they've proven anything. "I need money to get started." Wrong. You need to start before you ask for money. Build the smallest version, get initial customers, generate some revenue, show traction, show momentum, show that this isn't just an idea. It's a thing that's already working on a small scale. People don't invest in untested ideas. They invest in momentum. They want to see that you've already started, that there's evidence of demand, that you're not just theorizing. Even if it's tiny, a handful of customers, a small profit, a waiting list, that's infinitely more persuasive than, "Here's what I think could work." Fourth, demonstrate your unfair advantage. Why you? Why now? What do you have that others don't? What's your unique insight? What's your experience? What's your network? What's your skill set? There are a million ideas out there. What makes you the person who can execute this one? This isn't bragging. This is showing you're the right person at the right time with the right capabilities. If you can't answer why you convincingly, neither can the investor. Fifth, know your numbers cold. Revenue projections, cost structure, break-even point, cash flow timeline, funding needs, use of funds, how much you're asking for, and exactly what it will be used for. You need to speak the language of money fluently. Investors hear a lot of pitches. The ones who don't know their numbers get dismissed immediately as amateurs. You don't need a 50-page business plan, but you need to know, how will this make money? How much money? How soon? What needs to happen to get there? What are the risks? What's your mitigation strategy? If you can't answer these clearly, you're not ready to ask for investment. Sixth, tell a compelling story. Data matters. But people make emotional decisions and justify them with logic. You need both. You need the story that makes them feel something, hope, excitement, possibility, connection to a mission, and then you need the numbers that make them feel safe acting on that feeling. The story is about transformation, before and after, the world as it is and the world as it could be with your vision realized, pain and solution, problem and relief. Make them see it, make them feel it, make them want to be part of bringing it to life. Seventh, handle objections before they're raised. You know what concerns they'll have. Everyone has the same concerns. Will this work? Will I lose money? Is this person capable? What if it fails? Don't wait for them to ask. Address it up front. You're probably wondering about competition. Here's how we're different. You might be thinking this market is crowded. Here's why there's room. You may be concerned about my lack of experience in X. Here's what I've done to mitigate that. When you address concerns before they ask, you show you've thought this through. You show confidence. You show you're not naive. Eighth, create urgency without desperation. You want them to feel like this is a timely opportunity. That waiting means missing out. But you don't want to seem desperate. I'm talking to several potential investors is good. I need money by Friday or I'm sunk is bad. Position it as this is happening. The question is whether they want to be part of it. Not, will you please help me make this happen? But this is happening. I'm giving you the opportunity to participate. Are you in? Ninth, make the ask clear. Don't hint around it. Don't dance around it. I'm seeking X in funding in exchange for Y% equity. Or, I'm looking for Z in capital for this project with repayment terms of whatever you're asking for, state it directly. Wishy-washy asking gets wishy-washy responses. 10th, follow up persistently without being annoying. Most deals don't happen in the first conversation. You need to stay on their radar without becoming a pest. Send updates, share progress, remind them what's happening. Just wanted to update you. We hit X milestone this week. Quick update. We just signed our 10th customer. Keep the momentum visible. The person who stays in front of them professionally and persistently often wins simply because they're there when the investor is ready. Timing matters. If you disappear after one conversation, you miss opportunities that might have opened up weeks later. Now let's talk about what not to do, because I see these mistakes constantly. Don't oversell. If you promise the moon and deliver a rock, you destroy trust forever. Be optimistic, but realistic. Show the best-case scenario, yes, but also acknowledge challenges. Investors respect honesty. They know things go wrong. What they want to know is that you can handle it. Don't take rejection personally. Most investors will say no. That's part of the game. They're not rejecting you as a human. They're declining this particular opportunity at this particular time. Learn from it. Ask for feedback. Adjust. Move on. The worst thing you can do is quit after a few no's. Don't give up equity too easily. When you're desperate, you'll accept any terms. But giving away too much too early can kill your business later. Be thoughtful about valuations. Be careful about control. Sometimes, no deal is better than a bad deal. Don't skip legal protection. Get everything in writing. Use actual contracts. Protect yourself and the investor. We can just do a handshake deal. Sounds friendly, but creates disasters. Professional transactions require professional agreements. Here's what this really comes down to. Your ability to persuade people to invest in your vision determines whether your ideas die in your head or become businesses that generate wealth. Most people never build anything significant because they can't get past this step. They have ideas. They never turn those ideas into reality because they can't convince anyone else to support them. But you can learn this. You can get better at it. Every pitch teaches you something. Every conversation shows you what resonates and what doesn't. Every rejection shows you what needs to improve. Start practicing this skill before you need it. Start pitching ideas in low-stakes situations. Start telling your vision to people who have nothing to lose by listening. Start getting feedback on how you present yourself and your ideas. Build this muscle so when the high-stakes opportunity comes, you're ready. Because somewhere right now, someone with a worse idea than yours is getting funded. Because they know how to persuade. They know how to tell the story. They know how to project certainty. They know how to make people believe. You can do the same. Your ideas deserve to see the light of day. Your vision deserves a chance. But neither will happen until you master the art of making other people see what you see. The wealth you want to build starts with this: turning ideas into investments, resources into reality, vision into vehicles that generate income. And all of that depends on your ability to persuade someone to take a chance on what you're building. So get clearer, get better at storytelling, get smarter about numbers, get more confident in your presentation, get persistent in your follow-up, and get ready to hear no 50 times before you hear yes. Because the yes is coming, but only if you keep going. Only if you keep pitching, only if you refuse to let your vision die just because the first 10 people didn't get it. Someone will. You just have to find them, and the only way to find them is to keep persuading until someone says yes. That's how it works. That's how wealth is built. Not in isolation. Through partnership, through investment, through convincing others that what you see is worth supporting. Now, go make them see it. Chapter 5. Influence decision makers who control opportunities. You can have all the talent in the world, all the skills, all the work ethic, but if you can't influence the people who control doors, you'll spend your life locked outside watching others walk through. Decision makers, gatekeepers, the people who decide who gets hired, promoted, funded, selected, or given a shot. They control access to opportunity. And your ability to influence them directly determines how fast you build wealth. Most people don't understand this. They think if they just work hard, enough, someone will notice. If they just do good work, they'll get promoted. If they just have a great idea, someone will give them a chance. But that's not how it works. Hard work is table stakes. Everyone works hard. Good work's expected. Lots of people do good work. Great ideas are everywhere. What's rare is the ability to get in front of decision makers and influence them to choose you. Think about your current situation. How many opportunities have you missed because you didn't have access to the right person? How many times has someone less qualified than you gotten something you wanted because they knew how to network? How often have you done the work while someone else got the recognition? That's not bad luck. That's a skills gap. You haven't learned how to influence the people who matter. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Decision makers are busy. They're overwhelmed. They're making dozens of choices every week about who to hire, fund, promote, partner with. They don't have time to discover hidden talent. They don't have energy to dig deep into every application. They rely on shortcuts, recommendations, first impressions, people they already know and trust. If you're not in their circle, you're not on their radar. And if you're not on their radar, you don't exist, no matter how talented you are. So your job isn't just to be good at what you do. Your job is to make sure the right people know you're good at what you do. That means learning to influence people who are harder to reach, busier than you, and more skeptical than you want them to be. Let's talk about how. First, understand what decision makers actually care about. They don't care about your resume. They don't care about your struggles. They don't care about what you deserve. They care about one thing. Will you make their life easier or harder? Every decision maker is trying to solve problems. They're trying to hit goals. They're trying to look good to their boss. They're trying to avoid risk. They're trying to find people who will deliver results without creating headaches. If you can position yourself as someone who solves more problems than you create, you become attractive. This means when you approach a decision maker, don't lead with what you want. Lead with what you can do for them. Don't say, "I'm looking for a job." Say, "I noticed you're expanding into X market. I have experience solving Y problem in that space. Can we talk about how I might help?" You've just shifted from asking for a favor to offering value. Second, get in front of them before you need something. Most people only reach out to decision makers when they want something: a job, an investment, an introduction, a favor. So decision makers see outreach as a transaction. Someone wants something from them. But if you build relationships before you need them, you change the dynamic. You become someone they know, not someone asking for something. Connect with them on social media. Comment thoughtfully on their posts. Share their content. Show up at events they attend. Send them relevant articles. Offer help with no ask attached. When you finally do need something, you're not a stranger. You're someone they've interacted with, someone they recognize, someone who's given value before asking for any. That changes everything. Third, use warm introductions instead of cold outreach. Decision makers ignore cold emails. They're drowning in them. But when someone they trust says, "You should meet this person," they pay attention. That's the power of warm introductions. So your strategy isn't to spam every decision maker you can find with a cold message. Your strategy is to build relationships with people who already know the decision makers you want to reach. Ask for introductions. "I'd love to connect with X. Do you know them well enough to introduce me?" Most people never ask. They assume no one will help them. But you'd be surprised how often people will make an introduction if you simply ask, especially if you've built goodwill with them first. Fourth, make it easy for them to say yes. Decision makers are busy. If your request is complicated, unclear, or requires a lot of work on their part, it won't happen. But if you make it dead simple, you dramatically increase the odds. "Can we meet for coffee?" That's vague. When? Where? What about? Too much work to figure out. "I'd love 15 minutes of your time to get your advice on X. I'm free Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 10 a.m. I can come to your office or we can do a call, whatever's easier for you. I'll prep 3 specific questions so we can be efficient with your time." See the difference? You've made it specific, time-bound, low commitment, and convenient. You've removed friction. That's how you get meetings. Fifth, deliver immediate value. You got the meeting. Now what? Most people waste it asking for advice, fishing for opportunities, trying to impress. That's backwards. Instead, show up with value. I pulled together some research on that problem you mentioned. Here's what I found. Or, "I saw you're looking for X. I don't know if this helps, but here's someone in my network who does that." Or, "I noticed your company's struggling with Y. I wrote up a few thoughts on how I'd approach it. No obligation, just wanted to share in case it's useful." When you lead with value, decision makers remember you, not as someone asking for something, as someone who gave them something. And people like to help people who've helped them. It's human nature. Sixth, be persistently valuable, not annoyingly needy. One interaction isn't enough. Decision makers meet hundreds of people. You need to stay visible without being a pest. So you follow up with value. You send useful information. You make helpful introductions. You comment thoughtfully on their work. You stay on their radar as someone who adds value, not someone who wants something. Most people do one coffee meeting and then disappear until they need another favor. That doesn't build relationships. Consistent, value-driven touchpoints do. Seventh, demonstrate competence before you ask for opportunity. Don't ask for the big role right away. Offer to do a small project, propose a trial period, suggest a consulting arrangement, start with something low risk that lets you prove yourself. Decision makers are risk averse. They don't want to make bad choices, so reduce their risk. I know you're hesitant to hire someone without industry experience. What if I did a 30-day contract project first? You can see my work with minimal commitment. Now you've removed their biggest objection. Eighth, understand their decision-making timeline and constraints. Every decision maker operates under constraints you don't see. Budget cycles, approval processes, political dynamics, board requirements. If you don't understand these, you'll push at the wrong time or ask for things they can't deliver. So ask. Help me understand your process. When do you typically make these decisions? What's your timeline? Who else is involved? This shows you're sophisticated. It shows you understand business, and it helps you tailor your approach. Ninth, leverage social proof. Decision makers want to know other people trust you, so make sure they know about your wins, your clients, your results, your recommendations. Don't brag, but don't hide it either. I just finished a project with X company where we increased their revenue by Y%. That's not bragging. That's evidence. Evidence that you deliver. Evidence that others trusted you. Evidence that reduces their risk in trusting you. 10th, be the person they can't stop thinking about. This is the ultimate goal. You want to be so memorable, so distinctive, so valuable that when an opportunity comes up, you're the first person they think of. How do you become that person? By being different. By bringing unique insights. By following through every time. By by being someone who makes their life better every time you interact, by being so consistently valuable that they feel like they discovered a secret weapon. Most people blend together. They're forgettable. They're interchangeable. But when you're the person who always has interesting ideas, who always delivers, who always makes their life easier, you become irreplaceable. And irreplaceable people get opportunities. Let me give you the harsh reality. If you're not getting opportunities, it's because decision makers either don't know you exist or don't believe you can deliver. That's it. It's not about discrimination. It's not about luck. It's about visibility and credibility. You control both of those. Visibility is about showing up where decision makers can see you, online, at events, through mutual connections, in their content feeds. You make yourself visible by being active, engaged, and present in spaces they occupy. Credibility is about proving you can deliver, through small wins that build, through references from people they trust, through demonstrating expertise publicly, through case studies and results and testimonials. Most people wait to be discovered. But decision makers aren't looking for you. They're looking for solutions to their problems. So you have to position yourself as that solution. You have to make it obvious that choosing you makes their life better. This isn't manipulation. This is understanding how decisions get made. Decision makers have limited time and unlimited options. If you want to be chosen, you have to make choosing you the obvious decision. Start today. Make a list of the decision makers who control opportunities you want. Not 100. 5. 5 people who, if they knew and trusted you, could change your trajectory. Then, reverse engineer how to get on their radar. Who do you know who knows them? Where do they spend time online? What events do they attend? What content do they create? Where can you add value to them? Then, start doing it. Not with an ask, with value. Consistently. Over months, building the relationship, becoming someone they recognize, someone they think of, someone they trust. Because when the opportunity comes up, the job, the funding, the partnership, the promotion, they're not going to search through 1,000 resumes. They're going to think, who do I already know who could do this? And if you've done the work, if you've built the relationship, if you've demonstrated value, your name will be the one that comes to mind. That's how you influence decision makers, not by demanding attention, by earning it, not by asking for favors, by building relationships, not by hoping to be discovered, by making yourself impossible to ignore. The opportunities you want exist, but they're controlled by people who don't know you yet. Your job is to change that, to build bridges, to demonstrate value, to become someone they think of when opportunity arises. It takes time, it takes strategy, it takes consistency. But it's how wealth gets built. Not through random luck, through deliberate relationship building with the people who control access to the next level. Start building those relationships today. Your future opportunities are waiting on the other side of them. Chapter 6. Sell your value, not your time or effort. This is where most people trap themselves financially. They sell time, they charge by the hour, they exchange their energy for dollars, and in doing so, they create a ceiling they can never break through, because there's only so many hours in a day, only so much energy in your body, only so many years you can maintain that pace. When you sell time, you sell limitation, you sell scarcity, you guarantee that your income will always have a cap on it. Wealthy people don't sell time, they sell value, they sell outcomes, they sell transformation, they sell results, and the amount they can charge for those things has nothing to do with how long it takes them to deliver. This shift, from selling time to selling value, is one of the most important mental transitions you'll make in building wealth, and it requires you to completely reimagine how you think about your worth. Most people calculate their value based on time. I worked 8 hours, so I should get paid for 8 hours. This project took me 40 hours, so I should charge 40 hours of work. But that's backwards, because what you're really doing is telling the client or employer that your value is tied to your clock, not to what you delivered. Think about it. Let's say you can solve a problem that's costing a business $10,000 a month. You solve it in 5 hours because you're brilliant at what you do. Are those 5 hours worth $50 an hour, $200 an hour? Or are they worth $10,000 because that's what you saved them monthly? If you charge by the hour, you're selling yourself short. You're pricing based on your input, not their outcome. You're saying, pay me for my time instead of pay me for solving your $10,000 a month problem. The client doesn't care how long it takes you. They care about the result. The business owner doesn't care if you spent 5 hours or 50 hours on the solution. They care that their problem is gone. They care that they're saving money. They care about the value you delivered. So why are you pricing based on something they don't care about? This is the trap of hourly thinking. And it keeps people broke because it disconnects you from the value you create. You start thinking about your worth in terms of effort and time instead of impact and results. Here's the shift. Start thinking in outcomes. What changes because of your work? What problems disappear? What opportunities open up? What revenue gets generated? What costs get eliminated? What risks get reduced? What time gets saved? That's your value, not the hours, not the effort, the outcome. When you make this shift, pricing becomes completely different. You're no longer calculating how much should I charge per hour. You're calculating what's this outcome worth to them. And then you're capturing a portion of that value. Let me give you concrete examples. A designer who charges $50 an hour for logo design is selling time. A designer who charges $5,000 to create a brand identity that helps a business attract higher-end clients is selling value. Same designer, different framing. A consultant who charges $200 an hour for advice is selling time. A consultant who charges $10,000 to implement a system that increases revenue by 20% is selling value. Same consultant, different framing. A writer who charges by the word is selling time. A writer who charges based on the sales generated by their copy is selling value. Same writer, different framing. See the pattern? It's not about working harder or longer. It's about framing your work in terms of what it produces, not what it costs you to produce it. Now I know what you're thinking. But what if I'm not confident in the results? What if I can't guarantee an outcome? Here's the truth. You can't guarantee outcomes in most situations, but you can still price based on value instead of time. You do this by understanding the potential value. If this works the way we expect, what's it worth to you? Then you price somewhere in that range, not at the ceiling, but nowhere near the floor either. Let's say you're helping a business streamline their operations. You estimate it'll save them 5 hours a week. That's 20 hours a month. At $50 an hour average cost per employee, that's $1,000 monthly saved, $12,000 annually. Over 3 years, that's $36,000 in value. How much should you charge for that? If you charge hourly, maybe you spend 20 hours implementing it. At $100 per hour, that's $2,000. But if you charge based on value, you could charge $10,000 or more, because you're capturing a portion of the multi-year value you've created. The business still wins. They're paying $10,000 once to save $36,000 over 3 years. That's a great deal for them, and you made 5 times more than you would have charging hourly. That's a great deal for you. But most people never have that conversation. They just quote hours and leave money on the table because they're too afraid to price based on value. This fear comes from imposter syndrome, from not believing you deserve to be paid for results, from thinking you should only charge for effort. But that's employee thinking. That's trading time for money thinking. That's broke thinking. Value-based thinking says, my expertise, my skills, my knowledge, my execution, all of that creates an outcome. That outcome has worth. I'm going to capture fair compensation based on that worth. Here's another angle. Think about how long it took you to develop the skills to deliver that outcome. Years of learning, thousands of hours of practice, expensive mistakes, failed attempts. All of that went into building the capability you now have. When you deliver a result in 5 hours, you're not just selling those 5 hours. You're selling decades of experience that allow you to solve that problem so quickly. The client isn't just paying for the 5 hours. They're paying for the knowledge that makes those 5 hours effective. A surgeon doesn't charge less because the surgery only took an hour. They charge based on the value of the outcome and the expertise required to deliver it. You should think the same way. Now, how do you actually implement this? How do you transition from hourly pricing to value-based pricing? First, stop leading with time. When someone asks for a quote, don't immediately think, how many hours will this take? Think, what outcome will this create? If you can't define the outcome clearly, you're not ready to price it yet. Get clarity first. Second, have a discovery conversation. Before you price anything, understand what success looks like for them. What are they trying to achieve? What's preventing them from achieving it? What would change if they solved this problem? What's it worth to them to solve it? These questions reveal value. And once you understand the value, you can price appropriately. Third, present options. Don't give one price, give 3 levels: basic, standard, premium. Each level delivers different amounts of value. This does 2 things. It gives them choice, which people appreciate, and it anchors them to the middle option, which is usually your target price anyway. Fourth, never apologize for your price. When you quote value-based pricing, it'll feel high compared to what you're used to charging. That's the point. But if you apologize for it, if you hedge, if you justify excessively, you undercut your own value. State the price, explain what's included, then be quiet. Fifth, be willing to walk away. Some clients will never see value in what you do. They'll only see cost. They'll only want to pay hourly. They'll want the cheapest option regardless of outcome. Let them go. They're not your clients. Your clients are the ones who understand value and are willing to pay for results. Sixth, document your results. The more you can show past outcomes, the easier it becomes to charge based on value. Case studies, testimonials, before and after metrics. This isn't bragging. This is evidence. Evidence that you deliver. Evidence that justifies your pricing. Seventh, increase your prices regularly. As you get better, as you gain experience, as your track record grows, your value increases. Your prices should reflect that. Don't stay stuck at the same rate for years because you're afraid to ask for more. Your expertise is worth more this year than it was last year. Now let's address the biggest fear. What if they say no? They might. Some will. That's okay. Because what you're doing is filtering. You're separating clients who value outcomes from clients who only value cheap labor. The former builds your wealth. The latter keeps you broke. When you price low, you attract clients who want cheap. Cheap clients are usually difficult clients. They don't respect your time. They don't value your expertise. They nickel and dime. They demand more for less. They're not worth it. When you price based on value, you attract clients who understand return on investment. They're usually better clients. They respect your expertise. They trust your process. They're pleasant to work with. They refer others. They're the clients you want. So yes, some people will say no, but the right people will say yes, and those yeses will be worth more, both financially and psychologically. Here's what this comes down to. You will never build significant wealth selling time. The math doesn't work. Even at high hourly rates, you're still capped by hours available. But when you sell value, there's no ceiling. Your income is limited only by the value you can create and the clients you can attract. This is how consultants make 6 figures on a handful of clients. This is how freelancers 10x their income without working more hours. This is how agencies scale beyond the capacity of their team. They stopped selling time and started selling outcomes. You can do the same, starting today. The next time someone asks for a quote, take a breath. Don't immediately calculate hours. Ask about outcomes. Understand the value. Price accordingly, and watch what happens. You'll lose some opportunities, but you'll win bigger ones. You'll work with better clients. You'll make more money in less time. You'll build actual wealth instead of just trading your life away hour by hour. Your time is finite. Your value is not. Stop selling the first. Start selling the second. That's how you break through the ceiling. That's how you build wealth. That's how you finally get paid what you're actually worth instead of what your hours are worth. The choice is yours. Keep selling time and stay limited, or start selling value and watch your income multiply. I know which one builds wealth. The question is whether you're brave enough to make the shift. Chapter 7. Communicate financial discipline to partners and family. Money destroys relationships, not because money is evil, but because people can't talk about it honestly. You want to build wealth. You have to get everyone who shares your financial life on the same page: your spouse, your partner, your business co-founders, your family, anyone whose spending decisions affect your money. If you're not aligned with these people, you're fighting a losing battle. I've seen brilliant people with solid incomes who stay broke because their partner undermines every financial decision. I've seen entrepreneurs with great businesses fail because their co-founder had different ideas about money. I've seen adult children trapped supporting parents who refuse to change their spending habits. This is where persuasion becomes critical, because you can't force people to manage money the way you want. You can't control them. You can't just tell them what to do and expect compliance. You have to persuade them to align with you, to share your vision, to commit to the same financial goals, and that's hard. Because money is emotional. Money is about identity. Money is about values. Money is about security and fear and hope and dreams. When you try to talk about it, you're not just discussing numbers. You're discussing everything those numbers represent. Most people avoid these conversations. They're uncomfortable. They create conflict. They expose differences. So people just don't talk. They spend independently. They hide purchases. They resent each other. They build separate financial lives while pretending to be partners. And eventually, either the relationship breaks or the finances collapse. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can have productive conversations about money. You can align on goals. You can build financial discipline together. You just have to know how to navigate the conversation. First, understand that most financial conflict isn't about the money. It's about what the money represents. One person wants to save aggressively because they grew up poor and saving equals security. The other person wants to enjoy life because they grew up without joy and spending equals freedom. Neither is wrong, but they're operating from completely different frameworks. So before you can align financially, you have to understand each other's money story. How did your family handle money growing up? What did money mean in your house? What are your biggest financial fears? What do you hope money will do for you? These questions reveal the why behind the behavior, and when you understand the why, you can work with it instead of against it. Second, start with shared goals, not restrictions. Most people try to align finances by talking about what not to do. We need to stop spending so much. You can't keep buying things we don't need. We have to cut back. This creates defensiveness. It feels like criticism. It makes the other person dig in. Instead, start with what you both want. Where do we want to be in 5 years? What do we want to be able to do that we can't do now? What would financial freedom look like for us? When you're talking about shared dreams, you're building towards something together. That feels different than being told to sacrifice. Once you have shared goals, the financial discipline becomes a tool to reach those goals. It's not deprivation, it's strategy. If we want to retire early, we need to save X per month. That means adjusting our spending. What are we both willing to change to make that happen? Third, make it a conversation, not a lecture. You're not the financial expert lecturing the uneducated partner. You're equals trying to build something together. Even if you know more about money, even if you're better with numbers, you have to approach it as a collaborative discussion. That means asking questions instead of making declarations. What do you think about this? How would you approach this? Does this make sense to you? What concerns you about this plan? Give them space to contribute. Make them part of the solution. When people feel heard, they're more likely to align. When they feel dictated to, they resist. Even if your idea is better, you'll get nowhere if you make them feel stupid or controlled. Fourth, find the compromise between security and enjoyment. One partner wants to save every dollar. The other wants to live now. Both have valid points. You need security. You also need to enjoy life. The answer isn't one extreme or the other. It's balance. Create a system that honors both needs. We'll save X% toward our goals. We'll spend Y% on things we enjoy, and we'll protect Z% for emergencies. When both people see their values reflected in the plan, both are more likely to follow it. Fifth, Be transparent about everything. No secret credit cards, no hidden purchases, no separate accounts you don't talk about. Financial secrecy destroys trust. Even if you're hiding something small, the hiding itself becomes the problem. Transparency doesn't mean asking permission for every purchase. It means you both know what's happening with your money. You both have access to accounts. You both understand the full financial picture. You're operating as a team, not as individuals who happen to share a roof. Sixth, have regular money meetings. Don't wait for problems to discuss finances. Schedule a time weekly or monthly to review where you are, what came in, what went out, where you stand on goals, any concerns or changes needed. When you make this routine, it stops being a crisis conversation. It's just part of managing your life together. Plus, regular check-ins catch small problems before they become big ones. Seventh, assign roles based on strengths. One person might be better at tracking expenses. The other might be better at researching investments. One might be more disciplined about saving. The other might be better at finding deals. Divide responsibilities based on what each person does well. But, and this is critical, both people still need to know what's happening. Just because one person pays the bills doesn't mean the other gets to ignore finances. Both partners need to be informed and involved even if tasks are divided. Eighth, address spending differences directly. If one person is a spender and the other is a saver, ignoring it won't make it go away. You have to talk about it. I notice we have different approaches to money. Can we talk about how to find middle ground? Sometimes the spender needs to understand the long-term consequences of overspending. Sometimes the saver needs to loosen up and allow some enjoyment. Usually, both need to adjust. But the adjustment only happens through honest conversation. Ninth, use data, not emotion. When you're discussing finances, lead with facts. We spent X hard on eating out last month. Our budget was Y. That's Z'd over. If we kept doing that, it would cost us $4 annually. What if we cut that in half and put the difference toward shared goal? Numbers are less accusatory than emotions. You spend too much is an attack. Our dining budget is higher than planned is a fact. Facts can be discussed. Attacks create defensiveness. 10th, celebrate progress together. When you hit a savings goal, acknowledge it. When you pay off debt, celebrate. When you make good financial decisions, recognize them. Building wealth is a long game. You need wins along the way to stay motivated. Make those wins shared. We did this together. Our discipline is paying off. Look what we've built. When you're both invested in the outcome, you're more likely to stay aligned. Now let's talk about the hard scenario, when your partner refuses to engage, when they won't talk about money, when they keep overspending no matter what you discuss, when they're actively undermining your financial goals. This is where you have to get really clear about boundaries. You can't force someone to be financially responsible, but you can protect yourself. Separate accounts might be necessary. Limiting shared financial exposure might be needed. In extreme cases, you have to decide whether this relationship is compatible with the life you're trying to build. That's harsh, but it's real. If someone is actively sabotaging your financial future and won't change, you have 3 options. Accept it and stop complaining, protect your finances separately, or exit the relationship. There's no 4th option where they magically become different. With family, the dynamics are different but similar. If you're supporting parents or adult siblings who won't manage money responsibly, you're enabling, not helping. You can offer support. You can help them create a budget. You can teach them skills, but you can't want their financial success more than they do. Set boundaries. I can help with X, but I can't keep covering Y. I'm happy to support you as you make changes, but I can't continue funding choices I don't agree with. Boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary. You're not responsible for other people's financial choices, even people you love. You can help, you can support, you can educate, but ultimately they have to do the work. And if they won't, you can't destroy your own financial life trying to fix theirs. Here's the bottom line. You cannot build wealth alone if your financial life is shared with others. Everyone with access to the money has to be aligned on the goals and disciplined in the execution. If they're not, you're fighting against them instead of building with them. So start the conversations. Today. Not accusatory, not combative. but honest. Can we talk about our financial future? I want us to be aligned on money. Can we work on this together? Most people want alignment. They just don't know how to start the conversation. You starting it gives permission for honesty. You leading with questions instead of accusations makes it safe to engage. You might be surprised how willing your partner is to align once they understand it's a collaboration, not a lecture. Once they see you're not trying to control them, but build with them. Once they understand the vision and their role in achieving it. But it starts with you, with your willingness to have uncomfortable conversations, with your ability to persuade rather than demand, with your skill at framing financial discipline as a tool for shared dreams rather than a restriction on freedom. Master this communication, and you remove one of the biggest obstacles to wealth building. Fail at it, and you'll keep spinning your wheels no matter how much you earn. The choice is yours. Avoid the conversation and stay stuck, or initiate it and start building together. Your financial future depends on it. Chapter 8. Use stories that make complex money. Concepts, clear numbers bore people. Data makes their eyes glaze over. But stories stick, stories persuade, stories make people understand and remember and act. If you want to build wealth, you need to get good at telling stories about money. Not fairy tales, not lies, but true stories that make complex financial concepts simple and compelling. Because here's the thing, most people don't avoid good financial decisions because they're stupid. They avoid them because they don't understand them. Or they do understand them intellectually, but can't feel them emotionally. The information doesn't translate into action because it stays abstract. But when you wrap that information in a story, something changes. The concept becomes real. The stakes become clear. The path becomes obvious. And suddenly, the person who wouldn't listen to facts will act on the story. This is persuasion at its finest. You're not manipulating, you're translating. You're taking something complicated and making it accessible. You're moving information from the logical brain to the emotional brain where decisions actually get made. Let me show you what I mean. If I tell you compound interest means your money grows exponentially over time as you earn returns on your returns, you might nod. You might even understand it intellectually. But do you feel it? Does it change your behavior today? Now let me tell you a story. Two friends graduate college. Sarah starts investing $200 a month at age 22. Emily waits until she's 32 and then invests $400 a month, twice as much. By age 62, Sarah has contributed $96,000 and has about $470,000. Emily contributed $144,000, 50% more than Sarah, but only has about $365,000. Sarah has $105,000 more despite contributing less, simply because she started 10 years earlier. Those 10 years cost Emily over $100,000. See the difference? The second version isn't just information. It's a story with characters and choices and consequences. You can see Sarah and Emily. You can feel the weight of that 10-year delay. You can picture yourself as one of them. The concept became real. That's what stories do. They make abstract concepts concrete. They make future consequences present. They make decisions emotionally resonant instead of just logically sound. Most people don't build wealth because they can't tell themselves the right stories. They tell themselves stories that justify spending, stories that rationalize delay, stories that minimize risk. I'll start investing next year. I'm young, I have time. Life is short, enjoy it now. These stories feel good in the moment, but compound into regret. Your job, whether you're persuading yourself, your partner, your team, or your clients, is to tell better stories. Stories that make the right financial decisions feel urgent, important, and achievable. Let's talk about how to do this. First, use real examples with real people, not hypotheticals, real stories of real people who made real decisions and faced real consequences. My friend Joe thought he couldn't afford to save. He was living paycheck to paycheck. Then his transmission died. $3,000 he didn't have. He had to put it on a credit card at 24% interest. It took him 2 years to pay off and cost him an extra $800 in interest. If he'd been saving just $100 a month, he would have had the cash and saved himself years of debt. That's persuasive because it's real. Joe is someone who exists. The transmission breaking is something that actually happens. The consequences are specific and measurable. The lesson is clear. The cost of not having an emergency fund is higher than the cost of building one. Second, make the timeline visible. People struggle with long-term thinking. They can't see 20 years from now, so you bring the future closer. You make it real. You're 30 years old. You feel like retirement is forever away. But let me show you how fast it comes. Your parents? They were 30 yesterday. Now they're 60 and scrambling to figure out retirement. That's how fast 30 years goes. What you do today determines whether future you is comfortable or desperate. Future you is counting on current you to make the right call. Now retirement isn't abstract. It's your parents. It's fast. It's coming for you. The timeline became real. Third, use contrast to show what's at stake. Show both paths, the person who took action and the person who didn't. The outcome of discipline versus the outcome of delay. Two people earning $50,000 a year. Person A saves 10% every year, invests it, and lets it grow. Person B spends everything and saves nothing. At retirement, Person A has over $600,000. Person B has Social Security and hope. Same income, different choices, radically different lives. That contrast is powerful. It shows that outcomes aren't about circumstances. They're about decisions, and decisions are something the listener can control. Fourth, make the numbers relatable. Don't say, you need $1.2 million retire. That number is too big. It's overwhelming. It shuts people down. Instead say, if you save the cost of eating out twice a week, about $300 a month, and invest it, you'll have over $500,000 in 30 years, 2 dinners a week. That's the difference between comfortable retirement and struggling. Now the number isn't intimidating. It's 2 dinners. That's manageable. That's something anyone can picture doing. Fifth, address the objection through the story. You know what people will say. I can't afford to save. I'll do it next year. The market is risky. Don't ignore these objections. Address them through story. I hear you say you can't afford to save. Jenny said the same thing. She tracked her spending for 1 month and found she was spending $200 on things she didn't remember buying. Random Amazon purchases, impulse Target runs, subscription services she forgot about. She cut half of that and started saving $100 a month. A year later, she had $200 in savings for the first time in her life. She didn't get a raise. She didn't win money. She just stopped leaking cash on things that didn't matter. Now, I can't afford it isn't the final answer. Jenny couldn't afford it either until she found the leak. The story shows it's possible. Sixth, use emotional triggers appropriately. Fear of loss is more powerful than hope of gain. People will work harder to avoid losing something than to gain something new. Every dollar you don't invest today is a dollar that won't compound for your future. You're not just failing to save, you're actively costing your future self money. The $100 you spent on stuff you don't remember last month, that could have been worth $1,000 in 20 years. You didn't just spend $100, you spent your future $1,000 on nothing. That reframe hits different. It's not just save for the future. It's stop stealing from your future self. That's emotional. That's persuasive. Seventh, celebrate small wins through story. People need hope. They need to believe change is possible. So tell stories of incremental progress. Marcus started with $20 a week in savings. That's it. People told him it wasn't worth it, but he kept going. After 3 months, he had $240. First time he'd ever saved that much. That success motivated him to increase it. 6 months later, he was saving $50 a week. A year in, he had $2,000 saved. He started from $20 a week. Proof that small starts create big momentum. Now saving doesn't feel impossible. If Marcus can do it starting with $20, anyone can. The story creates permission to start small. Eighth, make failure instructive, not discouraging. When you tell stories about financial mistakes, frame them as lessons, not judgments. I watched someone drain their retirement fund early to buy a boat. They thought they'd rebuild it. They didn't. That decision cost them 30 years of compound growth. At retirement, they realized that boat cost them $500,000. Now they have the memory of a boat and a part-time job at 70. The lesson? Your present day wants compete with your future day needs. Choose carefully. The story doesn't shame the person. It shows consequences. It lets the listener learn from someone else's mistake instead of making it themselves. Ninth, keep stories short and focused. Rambling stories lose impact. You want a clear beginning, middle, and end. Setup, decision, outcome, keep it tight. Brian inherited $30,000. He could have invested it. Instead, he bought a truck and took a vacation. 2 years later, the money was gone. He still works the same job with nothing to show for his inheritance. That money would be worth $200,000 by retirement. He traded his future for a truck and a week in Mexico. That's under 60 seconds to tell, but impossible to forget. That's how you use stories. 10th, make yourself part of the story when appropriate. Vulnerability is persuasive. When you share your own money mistakes and lessons, people trust you more. I spent my 20s thinking I'd figure out money later. I made decent income and saved nothing. Then I hit 30 and realized I'd wasted 10 years. My friends who'd started investing in their 20s were way ahead. I had to play catch up. It worked, but I lost a decade of compound growth I can never get back. Don't be me at 30 realizing you wasted your 20s. When you include yourself, you're not lecturing from above. You're sharing from experience. That's more persuasive than perfect expertise. The reason stories work better than facts is simple. People are emotional decision makers who justify with logic after the fact. If you only give them logic, they'll find emotional reasons to ignore it. But if you give them emotional stories supported by logic, you trigger both parts of their brain. The emotional part feels it. The logical part justifies it, and they act. This applies to every financial conversation you'll ever have. Trying to convince yourself to invest? Tell yourself the story of compound growth in a way that makes waiting feel expensive. Trying to convince your partner to budget? Tell stories of couples who aligned and couples who didn't and the different outcomes they faced. Trying to convince a client to hire you? Tell stories of other clients you've helped and the transformation they experienced. Trying to convince an investor to fund you? Tell the story of the problem you're solving through the eyes of someone experiencing that problem. Stories aren't fluff, they're tools. Tools that make complex ideas simple. Tools that make distant consequences feel urgent. Tools that turn information into action. Get good at this and you'll persuade more people, including the most important person, yourself. Because every financial decision you make, or avoid, is based on the story you're telling yourself about that decision. Change the story, change the decision, change the decision, change your life. Start practicing today. The next time you need to explain a financial concept, don't just state facts. Tell a story. Make someone see themselves in it. Make the outcome real. Make the lesson clear. That's how you persuade. That's how you influence. That's how you use language to build wealth, not just for yourself, but for everyone you can help along the way. Chapter 9. Persist through rejection. Until someone says yes to your worth. Let me tell you the hardest truth about building wealth through persuasion. Most people will say no. Most doors will be closed. Most opportunities will reject you. And if you let that stop you, you'll never build anything significant. The difference between people who break through financially and people who stay stuck isn't talent. It's not intelligence. It's not even luck. It's the willingness to keep asking after being told no, to keep pitching after being rejected, to keep going when every signal says to quit. Because here's what nobody tells you. The path to yes is paved with no's. Every successful negotiation, every closed deal, every raised salary, every funded business, every client contract. They all came after multiple rejections. The only difference between success and failure is whether you quit after the rejection or keep going. Think about the last time you asked for something financially significant and got rejected. How did you respond? Did you ask someone else? Did you adjust your approach and try again? Or did you take it personally, retreat, and decide maybe you weren't meant for that opportunity? Most people do the latter. They hear no and internalize it as I'm not good enough. They hear rejection and interpret it as personal failure. They let one door closing convince them all doors are closed, and that's why they stay broke. Wealthy people think differently. They understand no is part of the process. They know rejection is data, not verdict. They see each no as one step closer to yes. They don't take it personally, they take it strategically. When someone says no to their ask for a raise, they don't sulk. They ask why. They gather information. They adjust their approach. They ask again later. Or they take that information to a different employer. They keep moving until someone says yes. When someone says no to their business pitch, they don't burn the idea. They ask for feedback. They refine the pitch. They find different investors. They keep pitching until someone sees the vision. They understand that investment isn't about having a perfect idea. It's about finding the right match at the right time. When someone says no to their price, they don't immediately drop it. They understand the value of what they offer. They find clients who can afford them. They communicate value better. They stand firm on worth while being flexible on terms. They know that too expensive often means I don't see the value yet, not you're worth less. This is the mindset shift that changes everything. Rejection isn't about you. It's about fit, timing, communication, or the other person's situation. It's rarely personal. But if you take it personally, you'll quit. And quitting guarantees failure. Let me give you numbers. If you're job hunting and apply to 20 places, you might get 5 responses, 3 interviews, and 1 offer. That's 19 no's and 1 yes. But that 1 yes can change your financial trajectory. If you stop after 5 no's, you miss it. If you're pitching clients and 10 say no before 1 says yes, that 1 yes might be worth thousands of dollars. If you stop after 3 no's, you leave that money on the table. If you're negotiating and the first 3 investors pass but the 4th one funds you, that 4th investor might be the only one you needed. But you only get to the 4th if you don't let the first 3 discourage you. This is the mathematics of persuasion. You need fewer yeses than you think. You just need to survive enough no's to get to them. So how do you build this resilience? How do you keep going when rejection piles up? First, detach your worth from the outcome. You are not your ask. Your value as a person isn't determined by whether someone gives you what you want. When they say no to your raise request, they're not saying you're worthless. They're saying no to that specific request at that specific time for reasons that may have nothing to do with you. Their budget might be tight. Their priorities might be elsewhere. Their decision-making might be constrained by factors you can't see. Don't make their no mean more than it means. Second, treat every no as market research. Why did they say no? What was their objection? What would have made them say yes? Ask these questions. Learn from them. Use that information to improve your next ask. Thanks for considering. Can I ask what held you back? Or, I appreciate your time. For future reference, what would have made this a yes? Most people will tell you, and that information is gold. Third, diversify your asks. Don't put all your hopes on one opportunity. Don't apply to one job and wait. Don't pitch one investor and sit. Don't ask one client and stop. Create a pipeline, multiple opportunities at different stages, so when one says no, you have others in progress. This does 2 things. It increases your odds mathematically, and it decreases the emotional impact of any single rejection. When you have 10 things in motion, 1 no doesn't derail you. When you have 1 thing and it says no, you're devastated. Fourth, set a number. I will ask 20 people before I decide if this isn't working. I will apply to 50 jobs before I question my approach. Give yourself a buffer, a certain number of no's you're willing to absorb before reassessing. Most people quit after 3 or 4 no's, but if you commit to 20, you're barely getting started at 4. That commitment keeps you going through the early rejections where most people quit. Fifth, adjust your approach, not your worth. If the first 5 people say no for the same reason, that's information. Maybe your pitch needs work. Maybe your price is off market. Maybe your timing is wrong. Adjust the approach. But don't conclude you're not good enough. There's a massive difference between my pitch needs refining and I'm not cut out for this. One leads to improvement, the other leads to quitting. Choose the first interpretation. Sixth, celebrate the ask, not just the yes. You can't control whether someone says yes, but you can control whether you ask. So celebrate that you had the courage to put yourself out there, that you made the pitch, that you had the conversation. That's an accomplishment whether they said yes or no. When you celebrate the ask, you reinforce the behavior of asking. You make it easier to keep asking. If you only celebrate yeses, you'll stop asking when the no's pile up. 7th, build support systems. Talk to people who understand the rejection game, mentors, peers, communities, people who've been through it. They'll remind you that no is normal, that persistence is the key, that you're not alone. Isolation makes rejection feel fatal. Community makes it feel normal. 8th, remember your why. Why are you doing this? What's the goal? What happens if you quit versus if you keep going? When you reconnect with your purpose, individual rejections lose their power. You're not doing this for one yes, you're doing this for the life you're building, and that life requires pushing through many no's. 9th, time your recovery. After a rejection, give yourself a moment, feel the disappointment, acknowledge it sucks, then move on. Don't dwell for days, feel it briefly, learn from it, let it go, get back in the game. High performers have short recovery times. They feel the sting, then they're back asking. Low performers marinate in rejection for weeks. They never get momentum because they're always recovering from the last no. 10th, track your progress. Keep a record of every ask, every no, every yes. Over time, you'll see patterns. You'll see your ratio improving. You'll see that persistence works. That becomes evidence that keeps you going. I'm currently at 15 no's. My target is 20 before reassessing. I've got 5 more to go. That framework keeps you moving forward systematically instead of emotionally. Let me tell you about the most expensive decision you'll ever make: quitting after a few rejections. Every time you do that, you guarantee failure. You lock yourself out of the opportunity. You ensure the answer stays no forever. But when you persist, when you keep asking, when you survive the no's and keep going, you create chances for yes. Maybe not from the first person, maybe not from the 10th, but from someone. Eventually. If you stay in the game long enough, I've watched people ask for raises from 5 different companies before landing one that paid them 50% more. I've watched entrepreneurs pitch 40 investors before one said yes and their business became successful. I've watched freelancers get rejected by 20 clients before finding the one that became a 6-figure contract. The yes was always there. They just had to persist through the no's to find it. What about you? How many no's have you survived? Have you even gotten to 10? Or are you still at 3, telling yourself it's not meant to be? Because I'll tell you right now, 3 no's is nothing. 3 no's is just getting started. 3 no's means you haven't even warmed up yet. The people who build wealth don't stop at 3. They don't stop at 10. They keep going until they get what they need. Not out of desperation, out of determination. They've decided what they're worth. They've decided what they're building, and they're not going to let other people's no's change their decision about their own value. You have to make that same choice. Are you going to let a few rejections define your financial future? Or are you going to persist until you find the people, the opportunities, the situations that align with what you're offering? The answer to that question determines everything, because your worth doesn't change based on who says no. Your worth is your worth. Your value is your value. Your offer is your offer. The only variable is finding the people who see it. And you only find those people by asking enough people until the right ones say yes. So stop taking rejection personally. Stop quitting early. Stop letting no become your final answer. Start treating rejection as part of the process. Start asking more people. Start adjusting your approach without diminishing your worth. Because somewhere out there, someone will say yes to what you're offering. Someone needs what you have. Someone will invest in your idea. Someone will pay your price. Someone will take a chance on you. But you'll never find them if you quit after a handful of no's. You'll spend your whole life wondering what could have been if you just kept going. Don't let that be your story. Make your story about the person who persisted, who kept going, who asked 20, 30, 50 times, who refined their approach, who stayed in the game, who eventually found the yes that changed everything. That's how wealth is built, not by avoiding rejection, by surviving it, over and over until someone says yes to your worth. And when they do, all those no's won't matter anymore. Chapter 10. Persuade yourself daily that wealth is achievable right now. Everything we've talked about, negotiating, selling value, influencing decision makers, building partnerships, all of it falls apart if you don't believe wealth is actually possible for you. Not someday, not eventually. Right now, starting today, with what you currently have. This is where most people fail. They understand the strategies, they know what to do, but deep down, they don't believe it'll work for them. They think wealth is for other people with better circumstances, better backgrounds, better luck, not them. And that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if you don't believe you can build wealth, you won't do the things that build wealth. You'll hesitate when you should act. You'll play small when you should think big. You'll accept less when you should demand more. And your disbelief will keep you exactly where you are. So the most important persuasion work you'll ever do is convincing yourself that wealth is achievable, not as a distant dream, as an active project starting now. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about delusional positive thinking. I'm not suggesting you pretend you're rich when you're not. I'm talking about building genuine belief based on evidence, strategy, and action. Belief that comes from understanding the path and committing to walk it. Because here's the truth. Wealth is achievable for most people who pursue it strategically over time, not overnight, not without effort, but achievable. The question is whether you'll do the work and stick with it long enough to see results. Most people won't. They'll quit too early. They'll give up when it gets uncomfortable. They'll convince themselves it's not possible rather than push through resistance. And then they'll blame circumstances instead of recognizing they stopped trying. But you don't have to be most people. You can be the exception. The one who decides wealth is happening and refuses to accept any other outcome. The one who commits to the work regardless of how long it takes. The one who believes so strongly that obstacles become temporary rather than permanent. So how do you build that belief? How do you convince yourself daily that wealth is achievable? First, define what wealth means to you specifically. Not, I want to be rich. What does that actually look like? Is it a certain net worth, a certain income, freedom from debt, ability to retire early, owning property, building a business, being able to travel, supporting your family comfortably? Get specific, because vague goals create vague effort, but specific goals create specific action. And when you know exactly what you're building toward, you can measure progress, you can see movement, you can prove to yourself it's working. Second, acknowledge where you're starting from without judgment. You're at point A. You want to reach point B. That's it. No shame about point A. No fantasy about magically teleporting to point B. Just honest assessment. This is where I am. This is where I'm going. This is what's required to get there. Most people can't do this. They either lie to themselves about point A, pretending things are better or worse than they are, or they romanticize point B into something unrealistic. Both destroy belief, because lies always collapse. Be honest. Radically honest. Third, break the path into stages. You don't need to see the whole journey. You need to see the next step clearly. What's the first financial milestone? Not the end goal, the first achievable step. Maybe it's saving your first $1,000. Maybe it's paying off one credit card. Maybe it's negotiating a $5,000 raise. Maybe it's getting your first client. Something achievable in the near term that moves you toward the bigger goal. When you hit that first milestone, your belief increases. Because now it's not theory, it's evidence. You did it. You proved you can make progress, and that proof fuels the next step. Fourth, collect evidence of what's possible. Study people who've built wealth from similar starting points, read their stories, watch their interviews, learn their strategies. Not to copy exactly, but to see proof that the path exists. When you see someone who grew up poor become financially successful, you can't say, it's impossible for people like me. When you see someone with your background, your education level, your challenges, when you see them succeed, you lose your excuse. Evidence destroys disbelief, so gather it intentionally. Fifth, audit your current beliefs about money. What stories are you telling yourself? I'm not good with money. Rich people are greedy. You need money to make money. It's too late for me. The system is rigged. Every one of those beliefs is a barrier. Write them down, look at them, then challenge each one. Is it actually true, or is it a story you've accepted without questioning? Most limiting beliefs about money fall apart under scrutiny, but you have to actually scrutinize them. Sixth, rewrite your money story. What's the narrative you want to live? I'm someone who builds wealth systematically. I make smart financial decisions. I ask for what I'm worth. I invest in my future. I'm disciplined with money. I create multiple income streams. Repeat these statements daily, not as affirmations you hope become true, as descriptions of who you're actively becoming through your actions. Your beliefs shape your actions, but your actions also shape your beliefs. Act like someone building wealth, and you'll start believing you're someone who builds wealth. Seventh, celebrate every financial win, no matter how small. You saved $50 this week? Celebrate it. You negotiated a discount? Celebrate it. You resisted an impulse purchase? Celebrate it. Every win reinforces the belief that you can control your financial life. Most people only celebrate big wins, but big wins are built on hundreds of small wins. Acknowledge them. Let them build your confidence. Let them prove that you're capable of financial discipline and smart decision-making. Eighth, make your progress visible. Track your net worth monthly. Graph your income trajectory. Keep a list of wins. Take screenshots of milestones. Create a visual representation of your progress. When you're feeling discouraged, when doubt creeps in, you can look at the evidence. Look how far I've come in 6 months. Look what I've built. This is working. I just need to keep going. Ninth, surround yourself with people building wealth, not show-offs, not people pretending, people actually doing the work. Their belief is contagious. Their strategies are teachable. Their success proves it's possible. You can't maintain belief in isolation, not when everyone around you thinks small, spends everything, and accepts financial mediocrity. You need people who think differently, who challenge you to grow, who expect more from themselves and from you. 10th, commit to daily action, even tiny action, because action creates belief more effectively than anything else. You can't think your way into believing. You have to act your way into believing. Do something every single day that moves you financially forward. Review your budget. Make one sales call. Apply to one better job. Save $1 more than yesterday. Read one chapter of a financial book. The specific action matters less than the consistency. Because when you take action daily, you're proving to yourself that you're serious. You're showing yourself that you're committed. And that consistency builds unshakable belief over time. Here's what I want you to understand. Your beliefs about wealth matter more than your current circumstances, because circumstances can change. But beliefs determine whether you'll do what's required to change them. You can have all the strategies in the world. You can know exactly what to do. But if you don't believe it's possible for you, you won't execute. You'll find reasons not to. You'll sabotage yourself. You'll quit before you succeed. But if you build genuine belief based on evidence, reinforced by action, supported by community, you become unstoppable. Because now you're not hoping, you're executing, you're not wishing, you're building, you're not waiting for luck, you're creating opportunity. That's the power of self-persuasion. When you convince yourself daily that wealth is achievable, everything else becomes easier. Negotiating doesn't feel scary, it feels necessary. Asking for more doesn't feel greedy, it feels appropriate. Taking risks doesn't feel reckless, it feels strategic. Your daily self-talk determines your financial future, so stop telling yourself stories that keep you small. Stop accepting limitations as permanent. Stop believing wealth is for everyone except you. Start telling yourself the truth. Wealth is built through strategy, discipline, and consistency. You have the ability to learn strategy. You have the ability to develop discipline. You have the ability to stay consistent. Therefore, you have the ability to build wealth. It's not a maybe. It's not a hope. It's a decision followed by action followed by results. And the only person who can make that decision is you. So make it. Today. Right now. Decide that wealth is achievable for you, not someday, now, with what you have. where you are, starting immediately. Then prove it to yourself through action. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one step at a time. Building belief through evidence, building wealth through discipline, because belief without action is just fantasy. But action without belief won't sustain. You need both. You need to believe it's possible, then prove it through daily work. That's how wealth is built. That's how persuasion works on the most important person, yourself. Start persuading yourself today. Tell yourself a better story. Take action that supports that story. Build evidence that reinforces your belief. Surround yourself with people who expect success, celebrate progress, track growth, stay consistent. And one day, sooner than you think, you'll look at your financial life and realize it worked. You believed, you acted, you built wealth, not because you got lucky, because you persuaded yourself it was possible and refused to accept any other outcome. That's the final piece. That's what ties everything together. All the negotiation, all the value selling, all the influence, it only works if you believe you deserve the wealth you're building. So believe it, decide it, commit to it, and then make it happen. Your wealth is waiting on the other side of your belief. We've covered a lot in the last 2 hours. Persuading yourself first, asking without apology, negotiating everything, getting investment for your ideas, influencing decision makers, selling value instead of time, aligning your family financially, using stories to make concepts clear, persisting through rejection, and building daily belief that wealth is achievable. Every single one of these skills is about persuasion, about understanding how decisions get made, yours and others, and using that understanding to create financial opportunities. But here's what I need you to hear. Knowing this information changes nothing. You can listen to this entire audiobook and still stay exactly where you are financially, unless you do something different. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is action, specifically persuasive action, action that moves other people and yourself toward yes. So what are you going to do? Right now, today, this week. What's the first conversation you're going to have? What's the first negotiation you're going to attempt? What's the first ask you're going to make? What's the first limiting belief you're going to challenge? Because if your answer is, I'll think about it, or maybe next month, or when the timing's right, then you've already lost. You're already persuading yourself back into comfort, back into delay, back into the same financial position you've been stuck in. But if your answer is specific, I'm going to ask for that raise Monday, then something is different. Then you're acting. Then you're building momentum. Then wealth becomes possible. Here's what I know after 2 decades of watching people either break through financially or stay stuck. The ones who break through share one characteristic. They're uncomfortable a lot. They have conversations that scare them. They make asks that feel too big. They negotiate when they'd rather just accept. They pitch when they'd rather stay quiet. They push through rejection when they'd rather quit. The comfortable ones stay poor. The uncomfortable ones build wealth. It's that simple. So the question isn't whether you understand these principles. The question is whether you're willing to be uncomfortable applying them. Whether you'll negotiate your next opportunity instead of accepting the first offer. Whether you'll ask for the raise instead of hoping someone notices your value. Whether you'll pitch your idea instead of keeping it safe in your head. Whether you'll persist through 5 no's to get to the one yes that matters. Your financial future is waiting on your willingness to persuade, to influence, to sell, to negotiate, to ask, to persist, not once, every day, in every situation where your financial life could improve. This is the work. Not reading about it, not understanding it. Doing it, having the conversation, making the ask, delivering the pitch, standing your ground, communicating your value, building belief in yourself and others. You have everything you need. The strategies are here. The framework is clear. The only question left is whether you'll use them. And I'm telling you right now, you should. Because the cost of not using them is too high. It's years of underpayment, years of missed opportunities, years of watching others get what you wanted because they were willing to ask and you weren't. You don't get a second shot at building wealth in your prime earning years. The time is now. The opportunity is now. The person who has to act is you. So go have that conversation. Go make that ask. Go negotiate that deal. Go pitch that idea. Go persist through the rejection. Go prove to yourself that when you persuade effectively, wealth follows. Because it does. Not magically, not immediately, but inevitably. When you master persuasion, when you apply it consistently, when you refuse to quit, wealth becomes the natural outcome. You're ready for this. You know what to do. Now go do it. Your wealthier future is waiting. But it's not coming to you. You have to persuade your way to it. Start today. Start now. And don't stop until you've built exactly what you set out to create, because you can. You absolutely can. Now, prove it.